One of the most recognizable artists of all time, Vincent van Gogh has a body of work that is well known and widely admired. Van Gogh paved the way for other avant-garde artists and was a significant contributor to the development of contemporary art as a leading post-impressionist figure. The Starry Night from 1889, one of his numerous works that have gained worldwide acclaim, was created towards the end of the artist's brief remarkable career and holds a significant place in art history. Van Gogh produced an innovative oil painting of the night sky using wavy brushstrokes. As we will see in a moment, the painter's well-known mental health concerns play a significant influence in his creative output, and The Starry Night is no exception. Be sure to click the subscribe button before we begin for more content on artists and their artworks. The setting. In 1889, while residing at a psychiatric hospital in Saint-Rémy-de-Provence, southern France, Van Gogh created The Starry Night. An altercation with his friend and fellow post-impressionist painter Paul Gauguin and Van Gogh's amputation of a portion of his own ear were among the turbulent events that preceded his hospitalization. After this dramatic incident in 1889, Van Gogh voluntarily checked himself into the Saint Paul de Moselle insane asylum. When Van Gogh arrived at Saint Paul de Moselle, which was housed in a former monastery and catered to the wealthy, it was less than half full, allowing him to occupy, at the request of his brother who was also paying for his stay, not only a second-story bedroom, but also a ground-floor room for use as a painting studio, in addition to a bedroom on the second floor. Van Gogh created some of his most well-known works during his year in the Saint-Rémy-de-Provence asylum, including Irises, which is now on display at the J. Paul Getty Museum, and the Blue Self-Portrait, which is housed in the Musée d'Orsay. The Starry Night was painted around mid-June when he informed his brother Theo of his inspiration in a letter that reads, "This morning I saw the country from my window, a long time before sunrise, with nothing but the morning star, which looked very big." The composition. The Starry Night is an oil on canvas that shows a landscape and a town at night. With the use of a painterly approach in which colors and tones, rather than lines and contour, define forms, all of the elements of the paintings are created by separate brushstrokes. In the upper right corner, a brilliant crescent moon is shown, with stars circling around it. The star's motion is echoed by the undulating slopes below. The little town of Saint-Rémy, which was where Van Gogh sought treatment, may be seen towards the bottom and to the right of the painting. Nonetheless, it is thought that the artwork does not accurately represent the town and its actual positioning. Although it is based on observation, Van Gogh also used his imagination and memory to create it. On the left side of the canvas, a couple of cypress trees that are firmly vertical are shown. This painting's primary color scheme consists of blues, yellows, browns, and greens. In June 1889, he says in a letter to his brother, "Finally, I have a landscape with olive trees and also a fresh study of a starry sky." The sky. The viewer is likely to notice the swirling, surreal sky as one of the first things in The Starry Night. These swirls, which are broken up by groups of yellow circles surrounded by a white glow, naturally draw the attention of the viewer. The piece's fluidity and sense of continuity are enhanced by the sweeping sky swirls. This texture was applied firmly to the canvas using an impasto technique, which is a characteristic of most of Van Gogh's work and allows the brushstrokes and paint knife markings to be seen. In keeping with his impressionist style, this approach gave the artwork an expressive aspect, conveying emotion rather than realism. Although it has been suggested that lead poisoning may have been a factor in Van Gogh's late life color choices, it appears more likely that he was expressing the night sky in a way that was unique to him. In a letter to his sister, he writes that the night sky was vibrantly colored than the day, given the presence of the most brilliant violets, blues, and greens. If you look closely, you can see that certain stars have a lemon-like shine while others glow pink, green, or forget-me-not blue. Even though the colors don't completely mold together, the fractured effect causes the viewer's sight to constantly leap from deep Prussian blue to cobalt to ultramarine, interrupted by the deep Indian yellow of the moon and the brilliant cadmium yellow of the stars. The composition has a vibrant and moving quality thanks to its excellent effect. Inspiration. Nighttime is a recurring theme in Van Gogh's work. For him, the twilight was a time for inspiration, and it gave him a sense of safety and peace. Van Gogh understood, though, that loneliness and agony might also be feelings caused by darkness. Van Gogh liked, and in his early career, imitated the Barbizon school, which was largely characterized by the topic of dusk and nocturnal landscapes. The use of artificial lighting, which began around this time, was also a favorite of his. Jean-François Millet, a French artist who painted a range of nocturnal landscape paintings, was a great influence on Van Gogh. Van Gogh's lighting and arrangement are evocative of Millet's Nuit d'étoiles, Starry Night, and similar to those in Van Gogh's rendition. It's a well-known fact that Van Gogh admired Millet's artwork, and during his stay in the Saint-Rémy asylum, he created 21 replicas of the artist's pieces, demonstrating both his admiration for the artist and his dedication to refining his own style. Paul Gauguin, a close friend of Van Gogh's, may have provided additional inspiration for this piece. Van Gogh started painting more from memory after Gauguin left their Arles house and relocated to Paris, which led to his paintings becoming less accurate and more ornate. An expert has suggested that Hokusai's The Great Wave may have served as inspiration for Vincent van Gogh to create the Starry Night. Martin Bailey, an art historian who specializes in Van Gogh, claims that the Dutch artist was a well-known collector of Japanese prints and a fan in particular of the Great Wave. He makes the distinction between the wave cresting over Mount Fuji in Hokusai's print and the night sky thrashing into the hills in Van Gogh's painting. Bailey speculates that Van Gogh might have been inspired by the concept of the sea because both paintings have a similar coloring of rich blues. Although Van Gogh wasn't carrying the print, it was clear that he remembered it in great detail, as he had also a great memory. The meaning. There are many theories regarding what Van Gogh might have been thinking when he created the Starry Night, which makes sense given the tragic events leading up to the artwork. The black cypress tree to the left of the painting is among the painting's most remarkable features. Cypress trees are frequently connected to graves and death. Thus, it's possible that the prominent position of the tree in the painting was meant to represent Van Gogh's unhappy mental state. Above the quiet, motionless village, the cypress tree looms almost menacingly. The nearly full height of the painting has been understood as a connection between life, the town and the countryside, and death, the tree. Some commentators have suggested that the painting may contain some hidden religious meaning. It has been asserted, for instance, that the Starry Night has obvious parallels to the Bible, and that Van Gogh's religious upbringing is evident in the visibility of the church steeple. There are primarily two schools of thought when interpreting the meaning of the Starry Night. First, that it's a message of hope. Even if circumstances might seem gloomy, there will always be forces to shed light on darkness. Second, that the painting might represent Van Gogh's coming to terms with the thought of death and accepting it. Some readings, though, depict a much grimmer image. According to this argument, Van Gogh's deteriorating mental state is portrayed in the Starry Night, and the agitated sky may reflect the confusion inside his head. Curiosities. Van Gogh created the Starry Night for the first time in 1888, as he developed an interest in portraying nighttime lights as soon as he arrived in France in that same year. With the Rhone River serving as the background to the portrait, he represented this image in the first Starry Night. Starry Night over the Rhone is another name for this work of art. More people are familiar with Van Gogh's second Starry Night than his first, which he painted in 1889. Another curiosity is that according to art historians, Van Gogh embellished the view from his bedroom window on the second floor. This conclusion is supported by the fact that his painting studio was located on the first floor of the structure. He left out the window's uninviting bars as well. Art historians also disagree as to whether the village depicted in the Starry Night was taken directly from one of Van Gogh's charcoal drawings of the French town, or if it was rather modeled after his native Netherlands. The examination also revealed that Van Gogh did not produce Starry Night while the moon was in the crescent phase. Actually, there was a half moon, or 3/4 full moon at the time. Initially, according to a theory put forth by Albert Boehm, Van Gogh intended to depict the gibbous moon, but he later altered his mind and gave it a more traditional and recognizable form. Venus. Van Gogh depicted the planet Venus in the Starry Night, according to art historian Albert Boehm of the University of California, who in 1985 compared the painting to a planetarium reproduction of what the sky might have looked like on June 1st, 1889. He saw significant parallels between the reproduction and the picture. Hence, it was determined that Van Gogh had unintentionally painted Venus. The MoMA. Van Gogh's Starry Night is a precious possession of the Museum of Modern Art. The Starry Night was purchased by selling 3 items from the museum's collection. Mary Quinn Sullivan, Abby Aldrich Rockefeller, and Lily P. Bliss established the Museum of Modern Art in New York in 1929. Bliss was a renowned modern art collector. When the MoMA's co-founder died in 1931, 2 years after the museum was established, she left behind a collection of more than 150 pieces from painters like Degas, Renoir, Cézanne, and Seurat. The truly remarkable thing is that Bliss specified that her works could be sold in order to acquire new works for the MoMA's collection. One of these was the Starry Night. One of the big unknown facts about the painting is that Van Gogh considered it a failure. He believed that his work was too far from the actual rhythms of nature and existence. Van Gogh's feelings regarding the Starry Night are very different from the astounding success the painting achieved. It is set on a night sky with blue swirls and a glowing crescent moon, making it the most famous in history.